So a little video here about including a jade egg, or sometimes called a Yoni egg, into your yogaSOMATICS practice. What is a jade egg? Here is this very beautiful piece of jade, hand carved into the shape of an egg. They come in different sizes. Here's another one. That one has holes for a string. And they come in different stones. For example, here is one that's made out of rose quartz. They come in black obsidian, amber, all kinds of different stones, but the most traditional and my favorite is made out of jade. This particular one that I like to use a lot is coming from Mexico. It's Mexican jade, and most jade eggs of good quality are hand carved, and they absolutely need to be of a good stone or a certified stone, and make sure they have no varnish or shellac or anything that is a paint covering on the outside. This is going to go inside of your body, in your vagina. So we want it to be something that you can trust, something that is not porous, and something that really has an energetic quality that feels good, safe, and healthy to put inside of your body. Yeah. So how do I use my jade egg? There's a lot of different ways to use them. Some people are teaching to use them using Kegels or pelvic floor exercises, and I think that's a super great way to work with them, especially for women who have just had a baby, or women who are suffering with incontinence, or need to generally strengthen the pelvic floor. Something for me that has been really interesting and important is to work with the jade egg inside of my vaginal canal to open up the sensing, feeling, perceptive quality of my inner body. I think many women become either hypersensitive or numbed inside of the vagina due to stress, due to past experiences, due to closing off, due to fear, and it doesn't always have to be like that. Of course, there's more to it than just using a jade egg, but I've found that the egg can really help me with the body feeling of my inner body vagina. So how do I use it? It's important to first prepare the body and let the body shift into a receptive state to receive the egg. I don't think much is going to be useful if you just put it up there and get going, because part of the point of a receptive vagina, or Yoni as they call it in Sanskrit, meaning sacred space, part of the aliveness of a vagina, an aliveness of a Yoni, is when it can open to its own receptivity, when it can be ready to receive, when it has an active yes that it can open to receive. So a few of the ways that I work with that, getting that juice going and that energy going of the yes to receive. It's not a passive receptivity. It's, in a way, your feminine energy opening at the base so that receptivity can happen. Can you sense the difference between that and passivity, which is simply just waiting for something to happen? So I like to create the scenario, or create the conditions actually, in my body and in my nervous system so that I can open to receive. And one of the ways we can do this as a nervous system reset, a message to the nervous system, is to make the mouth really moist. So you can start to simply create saliva in the mouth, or you might think or smell lemons or grapefruit or basil or something juicy or succulent. You might even eat some juicy juice fruit. Pomegranate seeds are always a nice one. Something that can really stimulate saliva in the mouth. You can do it without any food at all, of course. You could smell an essential oil of lemon, and that would probably begin the saliva moving as well. So what's the point about getting the mouth moist? The lips, the jaw, the tongue, the whole mouth in general is directly connected in the nervous system to the base of your body, to your pelvis, to the vagina, cervix, womb, and that capacity, more than capacity, actually that function of being able to open when we feel safe and ready to receive. It's really about the state of the nervous system. So take a little bit of time to work with that quality of receptivity and see what happens by making the mouth moist and opening to sensation, opening to the senses of taste, smell, and the sensation of a moist mouth. Another way that I work with when I have time and if my body feels like it is to give myself a breast massage with oil or also without, depending on the day. And there are some special techniques for breast massage, but most important is to be in contact with the breasts and the nipples. Massaging and giving contact to breasts and nipples will also make the vagina more moist, more lubricated. It may take a little bit of practice, but it does, over time, the nervous system does respond. And then it's a more receptive environment as a ritual to let yourself slip the yoni egg in. How do you slip it in? Generally, once I've worked with a few of those rituals to tell my nervous system, to ask my nervous system to shift into that state of repose, parasympathetic state, then I will take my yoni egg. I usually go into a squatting position. That's the one I like. Some women like to lay down. For me, it feels better to find my ground and feel my feet under me as I can slip the egg in. So the egg always goes in with the thicker end towards the top, the pointed end towards the bottom. And you'll see what happens. The first step in the perception part is really noticing, does your body pull it in? Does it stay near the opening of the vaginal canal? Do you have to give it a little bit of a push? Do you feel like you want to sort of move it around a little bit? It's quite smooth. It might be a little bit cool at the beginning, but believe me, it'll warm up to your body temperature by the end. And so you could feel where it wants to go. Some eggs you can feel more than others because of the weight and the size, and also depending on where you are in your cycle and your stress levels and just in general in your emotional state each day. Once I have the egg in, I might spend a little bit of time practicing some very gentle pelvic movement, some stirring or some orbiting. I might work with giving some flexibility, some softness to my hamstrings, my lower back, my hip joints, all this tissue around the pelvis. And then I will find a comfortable seat. For me, sitting cross-legged is pretty comfortable with a cushion. If that's not comfortable for you, sit with both legs stretched out. I would sit on the floor if you can, or on the earth. Or if you need to sit on a chair, to sit on a firm chair. If the couch or the chair is too soft, you're not going to have as easy of a time to feel these micro movements that I'm going to suggest. Then from there, I begin to slowly put my attention in the the fire just came on. So it's a good sign of something waking up in the yoni. So I'll slowly put my attention to where I can perceive this weight or this smoothness against also the smooth tissue of my vaginal walls. Sometimes it's hard to feel at first. Many of us have become quite desensitized. So this is a practice to slowly begin to resensitize. I will very slowly make a movement with my vaginal canal that looks something like this, almost like a jellyfish movement, and then release. Slow pull up and release. It's not so much a contraction, a hard up contraction of the pelvic floor. It's more if I could ripple and release, ripple and release. It's almost micro. And as I work with that, it might be very slow. The release is super, super, super important. So feeling the energy, most likely the egg won't slip out at that point. If it does, you can play with a little bit stronger draw up and then a little bit slower release. So it comes something like pulsing. It doesn't have to be coordinated with the breath, although at the beginning you might do that to help your focus be there. And keep the mouth and the jaw soft. There might be a tendency as when you start to work with this that you get tight in the face or tight in the jaw. So super, super important to slowly keep awareness here being soft and then play with a rippling up and a letting release. Ripple and release. Ripple and release. And you might sense that you could feel it more in the one side or the other of the vaginal canal, or the back or the front. You might sense where the rounder part of the egg is, or you might open to sense where you could feel it slipping down the vaginal canal if it is. Or you might feel if you could sense where it might be coming up close to the cervix. These are all variables. It really depends on where you are each day. Then I might spend a little bit of time after I do the ripple and release for maybe 3 minutes. Then I spend a little bit of time with not necessarily making any active movements there. And I let my breath descend from my crown on an inhale down to where I could at least imagine to perceive the egg in my body. And as I exhale, I let there be a really light-handed exhale that comes back up towards my crown. It's not a pushing up, it's not an arrow, it's just a light floating up like the mists might come up off of a mountain lake. Back to my crown. And when I inhale, I will use my breath to move down the body, maybe like a raindrop or several raindrops move down the body to notice where at least my knowledge is that the egg is inside of my body. And then the out breath comes back up really lightly. And then I might again create another different cycle with the ripple and release. We call them jellyfish bandhas, because what we're trying to do is not to necessarily make a hard musculature at the pelvis. We're actually trying to, we're being curious about opening up sensation. And when we open up sensation, then we're going to have a lot more capacity for different movements, for perceiving what's happening in our own bodies, and also what's happening in a really deep root part of us. So this would be how I would work for maybe 20 minutes. 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off with this ripple and release, the jellyfish bandha, and then a pause with breath awareness. If it feels like it's too much to keep sitting, then lay down in constructive rest. Let the soles of your feet be on the floor. And play a little bit with some pelvic tilting. So really soft pelvic tilting. The whole point is to start to let awareness move to the pelvis. So I use the yoni egg as a tool of awareness. That's what it is for me. It's not just a stone to put inside my body. It's a tool of awareness for a place that is not visible with my eyes, and that I can open up my inner sensation to tell me more. When you're ready for the meditation to be over or the practice to be over, you could simply slip it out with your fingers. If you've put a thread on it, you could give a gentle tug with the thread, but don't pull too hard. You could really practice on letting it almost being like laying an egg. So a soft push also. And it might push and draw back in a little bit. Have some play with it. You absolutely cannot lose it inside of your body. Don't worry. The cervix does dilate, but it doesn't dilate enough, except for when you're giving birth to a baby, to be this big. So It dilates slightly when you're menstruating, and I don't generally use my egg during menstruation, or I didn't used to. Now I don't menstruate very much anymore. And you'll slide it out, and you could give it one of my favorite things to do after I slide it out is to hold it in my hand and feel the heat of my own body that's been absorbed in the stone. It's, to me, every single time, and I've done this for years, every single time I feel how hot and how warm it is inside of my own body, at least that's my experience, that's absorbed in the stone. I am so touched by my own life energy and my own heat. So you could let that be a little bit of a reflection for a while too, to hold the stone in your hand, to keep it nearby. And I think you'll develop a bit of an intimate relationship with this stone after a little while. After you've let it moved out on a practical purpose, if you want, you could give it a rinse in some spring water or some fresh water. It really doesn't need a detergent if you rinse it off right away with water. We don't really want to be putting detergents back into our body like that. They upset the bacterial balance, or they can. So if you do need to use a detergent, use something just as simple as Dr. Bronner's, or something that's a really neutral Castile soap, something like that, and give it a good rinse. And then I put it in a special place. Mine I keep by my bedside. Although I don't use it when I sleep, I use it as an awareness practice. But I still keep it by my bedside with other special ritual items that I have. I'm sure there's maybe some other questions about yoni eggs, and feel free to send me a text, an email, or a comment on this video, and maybe we can bring in some more questions. I've had a few questions if you can use a yoni egg while you have an IUD, and the opinion is out both ways, that one says that it is not safe and one says that it is, and you just need to be a little bit careful about the strings from the IUD, the copper spiral, the strings that come down, not to let those get in with any kind of string that you have in your yoni egg. I don't suggest using it when you're menstruating, because the menstruation enough shall give you enough sensation to be feeling in your pelvis. And for women who don't menstruate anymore, like me, or I'm on that track, I find it so empowering to use this to stay in contact with my juicy sexuality in my pelvis, my vagina. I find that when I use it regularly, it makes my vagina have a much more moist quality to it, and it really feels like a great stress reliever for me, actually. So this change of life feels stressful in my system sometimes, to my nervous system. So this yoni egg work really seems to shift the stress quality in my nervous system, and then that affect also the different symptoms or the different qualities that a menopause process would have. So I suggest you find yourself a yoni egg, a really nice one that you love and that you can build a relationship with. It doesn't really matter what size it is. Some people say, well, if you've had children, you should have a bigger size, and if you haven't, you should have a smaller size. But generally what it is more about awareness. So the vagina is very, very flexible and very elastic, and it has that potential to be. So it can really take many, many shapes and many sizes. Yeah. Those are just a few of my tips and reflections on using a jade egg, and I really look forward to hearing some of your feedback and your questions, and I hope you enjoy your practice. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel right here for more videos like this.